Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes. We'll try to shed light on various theories of everything that could be important, an important contribution to your life if you studied up on them and learned how they work. And today is our 299th video on Dewey B. Larson's reciprocal system of theory. And as it says, this is a system of theory. So basically means if you understand the theory, then you can apply it to any subject. Easier said than done. But if you see kind of how Larson does it and applies his theory to diverse subjects, chemistry, astronomy, physics, philosophy, psychology, economics, religion, the occult, psychic powers. All of these things he's attempted to understand through his reciprocal system of theory. You can apply it to these subjects and many more. So now the basic idea behind Larson's system is that we live in a universe of motion. The universe is not made out of matter, it's not made out of energy, but is made entirely of motion. And for Larson, motion was defined as the relationship between space and time. So this sets up a generalized reciprocal relationship between space and time. Space and time have no independent existence. They only exist together in motion. Motion is basically a fraction or a ratio with time or space as the numerator and space or time as the denominator. With a few caveats, which Larson lists in his first fundamental postulate. He has two fundamental postulates. The first one is by far the most important, and the first postulate indicates that the universe is made out of motion, the relationship between space and time. Time and space are the same, except that they are reciprocals of each other. So they have the same qualities. One of which is that they have a coordinate quality, meaning that they come in 3 dimensions. Now, we are accustomed to the idea of 3-dimensional space, not so much with 3-dimensional time. Also, time and space both progress. We are accustomed to the concept of the progression of time. Time is always getting later and later and later, as you can see by the clock. But space also progresses. Space is always getting farther and farther and farther apart, which you can envision using a balloon with dots on it. If you blow up the balloon, all of the dots are moving away from each other. But in no specific direction. That's what Larson calls a scalar motion, a motion that has a magnitude, but it has no particular direction. And this was also noticed by the Hubble telescope that observed that all of the distant galaxies are moving away from each other. That is the progression of space. It's what Larson calls clock space, to go along with clock time. And then time and space also have their discrete aspect, meaning that they only come in discrete units. There's no continuity. They come in chunks. The chunks are very small, but nonetheless, they come only in chunks. You have to have a full unit of space before you have space. And you have to have a full unit of time before you have time. If you have one full unit of space in one full unit of time, then you have the speed of light, which Larson refers to as unit speed. 1 over 1 equals 1. And so this unit speed in Larson's system is basically the state of rest of the universe, and or the ether, or the origin, or the background, or the null point, or the reference point of this universe. And so this makes sense because in a universe of motion, motion is going to be the first thing that pops out. It's basically the omnipresent, eternal, always existing thing that's always there. And then any divergence from this speed of light moving outward is going to generate the actual phenomena of the universe. So this speed of light outward in all directions appears to us as absolutely nothing. And this is the normal, the 0 point. So this is the big difference between Larson's system and the conventional scientists, who are still, along with Einstein, saying that the speed of light is the maximum speed of the universe. Larson is saying that the speed of light is the midpoint, the neutral point of the universe, and that actually half of the universe is moving faster than the speed of light. This is the half of the universe that the scientists don't know anything about. And then there's also half the universe that is moving slower than the speed of light. And this is the half that the scientists do know about. Now, they do have hope because of the reciprocal system. What's going on in this material sector, the half that's going slower than the speed of light, is exactly the same as what's going on in the cosmic sector because of the reciprocal relationship between space and time. The cosmic sector is a sector moving faster than the speed of light. All you have to do is invert the roles of space and time. So in the material sector, you have relations that are based on coordinate space, 3 dimensions of space, and progressing time, or clock time. The clock's always getting later and later and later. But when you cross that speed of light boundary and you move into the cosmic sector, then you're dealing with relationships based on coordinate time, 3 dimensions of time, and clock space. Space is always getting farther and farther apart. So that kind of shows you that you invert as you cross that boundary, and these are basically mirror images. Okay, now Larson took those that initial portrait drawn by that first postulate, and he, through a process of deduction over the years, developed an entire theoretical universe about, okay, if this is true, if this postulate is true, and the other postulate, which has more to do with mathematics and geometry, then this is true. And if this is true, then this is true. If this is true, then that's true. And so he goes through this step by step in about 165 steps, which I've recorded about 15 videos on that came out about 8 months ago. So if you want to go back in the archives, you can check me out going over Larson's outline of the deductive development of the reciprocal system. And so from there, he started writing his books on chemistry and physics and astronomy in particular. Eventually wrote some economics, and metaphysics was his last book that he published posthumously, or his wife published posthumously. And he also developed a small following small but dedicated following, which included perhaps most prominently Dr. KVK Nehru from India, and Professor Nehru wrote a lot of different articles, some very technical, on various aspects of the reciprocal system. We're looking at one of Dr. Nehru's articles today called The Space-Time Universe, and he goes over kind of an overview of the reciprocal system and documents a number of the outstanding achievements of the reciprocal system. And I believe this is our 6th episode of going through this article. So if you want to go to back to the start of the article, you want to go back about 5 videos. But we are going to take over here where he's, I believe he's discussing the 6th or 7th, the 6th of the outstanding achievements. And it'll be talking about the liquid state of matter here. He was talking about the solid state earlier, having to do with solid cohesion, and that cohesion is not based upon gravity, but more on the progression. The progression is the outward movement of the natural reference system. That's basically your dots on a balloon, on an expanding balloon. Gravitation is the opposite, so that those are the dots on the shrinking balloon, the balloon that you suck in. That's a gravitational force. But if you are within what he calls the time region or the space region, the rules invert, and gravitation becomes a force that goes outward, and the progression is a force that goes inward. And you get into this time region if you do not have a full unit of space. So in the region of action, less than 1 unit of space, you don't have space. So you only have time. And so whatever's going on is going on in time. And we don't see time, however, we only see space. And so we see what's going on as the equivalent in space of what's actually going on in time. So the progression is going outward in time. But since we don't see time, we see it as the inverse of that in space. And so we see a movement inward in space. Okay, here comes Dr. Nehru. According to the reciprocal system, the liquid state of matter is reached when atomic cohesion is overcome in one of the dimensions by thermal motion or heat. And the gaseous state is the result of overcoming cohesion in all 3 dimensions. Okay, now, I haven't really talked about this in really the 300 videos that we've done here, but the states of matter is of fundamental importance in Larson's system. You got solid, liquid, and then you really have vapor and gas. And they're based on the number of dimensions that are in the time region in the material sector. Same holds true with the cosmic sector, but then we're dealing with what you would call inverse solid, inverse liquid, inverse vapor, and inverse gas. But as far as solid, liquid, vapor, and gas, if you have 0 dimensions outside of the time region, you're talking about a solid, a crystal. If you're talking about 1 dimension outside the time region, then you're talking about a liquid. 2 dimensions outside of the time region, you're talking about a vapor. And 3 dimensions outside, all dimensions outside, then you're talking about a gas. And so the gas is actually expanding according to the progression in like an expanding balloon. And each one of those things is really separated by 90-degree shift. So if you have a solid, you have, like an ice cube, and that solid melts to become a liquid. Now you have a flat surface. It's a 90-degree shift. And then once you get a vapor, the particles of say the water move upward, straight upward. So that's another 90-degree shift. And then when you get to a gas, then you have a radiating movement in all directions. So that would be possibly another 90-degree shift. Okay, back to Nehru. A liquid is reached when atomic cohesion is overcome in one of the dimensions by thermal motion, and the gaseous state is the result of overcoming cohesion in all three dimensions. Thus, the state of matter, solid, liquid, or gaseous, is shown to be the result of the state of the individual atom or unit or molecule, which is a departure, I believe, from the legacy scientists, which state that it's the result of an aggregate. But Larson is saying here that the state of matter is dependent, is of each individual atom. Experiments on the melting point of solutions amply support this. This is an insight of great significance from the occultist point of view. The liquid state, for example, is regarded by modern science as a characteristic of the aggregate and not of the individual unit. In such a view, therefore, to speak of a liquid molecule, for example, is absolutely meaningless, since liquid state is regarded as the lack of long-range order in the arrangement of the individual molecules. And obviously, order or lack of it refers to the relative arrangement of the individuals and is a group property and does not apply to a single unit by itself. However, from a study of the work of Leadbeater and Besant on occult chemistry, we do get the impression that the change of state of matter is marked by the change in the condition of the individual unit. The elucidation of the physical states of matter can be classed as outstanding achievement number 6 of the reciprocal system. Examination of the possibilities of the rotational motion that constitutes the atom reveals the genesis of the periodic table of elements on the basis of rotation in 3 dimensions. The reciprocal system further shows that there is not only a lower limit, the positive 0, to this rotational displacement, namely 1 unit, but there is an upper limit, the negative 0, 2, because of the reciprocal symmetry between space and time. Thus, if the atomic rotation reaches this upper limit, the motion as rotational displacement is terminated and reverts to an equivalent amount of linear displacement, i.e. radiation. This is known to us as the phenomenon of radioactivity. As radioactivity is the result of reaching the negative 0 level, as against the familiar positive 0 level, the space-time relations are inverted. The order of the radioactive disintegration of the individual atoms is based on the proximity in time, unlike in the ordinary explosion, where the action spreads on the basis of proximity in space. This shows up as a random disintegration in space. Further, while in the familiar explosion in space, the action spreads at a high speed, in radioactive disintegration, the action spreads at a high inverse speed, that is, slowly. This results in the long decay life, running into the millions and even billions of years in some cases, of the radioactive elements. Now, Dr. Bruce Perret, which is one of the running mates of KVK Nehru, who together they came up with what they called RS2, which is the reevaluation of the reciprocal system. He did some work on revising Larson's system of radioactivity a little bit and really scaled down the results. And uranium-235 or whatever is supposed to have a half-life of 4.6 billion years, reflecting the age of the Earth. Perret scaled it down to just thousands of years. But still, this still applies what Nehru is saying. I would say that thousands of years is still slowly, at a high inverse speed. That is, at a low speed, slowly. Okay, this next section is called electricity and magnetism. Since the reciprocal system asserts that motion is the common denominator of the physical universe, a question like, what is electricity, does not arise. Everything in the physical universe is a form of motion. It only is necessary to see what type of motion is electricity. So far, we have considered linear translation, linear vibration, and rotation. The next logical possibility is rotational vibration. Indeed, the theoretical development of the reciprocal system shows that electricity and magnetism, or more specifically, the electric and magnetic charges, are one-dimensional and two-dimensional rotational vibrations, respectively. All the characteristics of electrical and magnetic phenomena can be deduced from this basis, including the derivation of the actual values of the material properties like electrical resistivity, susceptibility, permeability, and a host of others. Incidentally, it will be found that electric charges are distinct from electric current. The latter comprises of the movement of uncharged electrons, which is a major departure from legacy science, which does not posit anything such as uncharged electrons. But in Larson's system, uncharged electrons are electric current. And he defines an electron really as a rotating unit of space. And when that rotation is vibrated, then it becomes an electric charge, a rotational vibration. An interesting feature of electrons are that they move through matter, not through the interstices of matter, but through the matter itself, because electrons are rotating units of space, and so they move through matter, which is made out of time. Time is motion. Space is not motion. So the only motion that you'd have in an electron would be through time, which is through the matter itself, not through the spaces in between the matter. Nehru is probably going to say the same thing right here. This is in view of the fact that the uncharged electron is effectively a rotating unit of space. Since the relation of space to space is not motion, an electron, when not carrying the electric charge, cannot move through empty space. On the other hand, matter is a time structure, and since the relation of space to time is motion, electrons can move through matter. We will later again have occasion to refer to this phenomena in connection with the occult observations of Koilan. The explanation of the origin and nature of electricity and magnetism is the outstanding achievement number 7 of the theory. Not sure why he didn't go with the radioactivity as number 7, as this is number 8. But anyway, in a subsequent article, we will endeavor to sketch the extraordinary truths brought to light by the reciprocal system concerning the universe at large, truths which have not been suspected to exist. It's a little bit vague, but I guess that's a teaser. But that is the end of part 3 of this article, and I think I'm going to stop right there and resume tomorrow reading part 4, which seems to be here on more on magnetism. Okay. Okay, well, you know, this stuff, hopefully, if you watch enough of these videos, the stuff begins to add up. You know, I try to explain the reciprocal system each time out in a slightly different way, so that even if you watch it a million times, you'll get at least something new each time that you hear it. And that is one of the keys that I found to beginning to understand the reciprocal system, is that you have to just repetition. You just have to go over it over and over and over again. The hardest part is really being able to trying to set aside the various assumptions and mistakes that you already learned about you know, physics and astronomy and chemistry and other subjects that are kind of, that the reciprocal system is flying in the face of. And as Nehru says, the first thing that you need to set aside is the setting concept. The universe is not matter and energy going through various dynamic processes in a container of space-time. Space-time is not the container of Larson's universe. Space-time is the contents of Larson's universe. The universe is made out of space and time. But in the legacy science system, going all the way back to the Greeks, the idea is that space and time is the container or the setting, the stage on which matter and energy interact. And that is overruled by Larson's system. So, you know, that's kind of the first thing. And then, as Larson says, you have to be able to conceive of a something moving, or you have to be able to conceive of motion before you can conceive of something moving. Motion precedes the something that is moving. And in fact, the something that is moving is also motion. So, you know, in a universe of motion, motion precedes everything else. And motion is really the ether of the universe. It's always there. There's always motion. It's, you know, the state of rest of Larson's universe is a state of motion. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Hope you come back tomorrow.